creating animation when it comes to fireworks, what you need to do, we're going to first just create a simple object, and we're going to create a simple oval shape. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to select this object. I can either right click it, open up the window where we've got some choices here where we can edit it. We can have the magnification, we can adjust the magnification. We can have selecting where we can select all, deselect, super select. We're able to hide selection, hide edges, arrange, bring to the front, bring to the back. We're able to transform it as we talked about earlier. We're able to group it. And here we can convert it to a symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and convert it to a symbol by pressing F8. We're brought up a choice between graphic, animation, and button. I'm going to go ahead and create it as an animation and leave it as a default, just calling it symbol. We see that right away another window opens up when we're dealing with animation, and this is the animation window asking us originally how many frames we want this animation to go. I'm going to select 10, how much we want to move it, the direction we want to move it in, the scale that we want to adjust the scale of it, the opacity or the alpha, so depending on how much we want to adjust that, we can start at 36, end at 100%, and then we've got the rotation, how many times we want to rotate this particular object. Selecting OK pops up telling us that our symbol extends beyond the last frame of the documentation, because as we can see, what we've been working on the whole time, we've been only working on frame 1. And the way that the frames work is it's just like a cartoon where you've got an animation where you draw one frame, and if you want this particular oval object to move across the screen, and if you want to have a smooth animation, you would draw a bunch of frames and having the end result being the last frame. So I'm going to go ahead and select OK and let them automatically add the new frames. And we can see that because I selected to make it 10 frames long, I see that I've got frames starting at 1, default being labeled 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10. So now I've created 10 frames. They all have the same layer inside of them. I can open up the layers panel here and we can see. And as I move through the frames, we see that each particular frame has its own layer. We can move through the frames all the way to number 10, or we can move through frame by frame from next frame to the previous frame. So we see here that each frame has a layer 1, and we see the difference between each frame. So I'm going to go ahead and close the layers, and we're going to look at the frames. If I want to play this particular animation, I can simply press on play, and we can view all the frames going through one by one, and we can see how this animation is working. We've got an option down here in the bottom corner where we're able to loop. I'm just going to stop it for now, and we've got our options here for onion skinning, which allows us the option to see the different frames from one to another one. Currently we've got no onion skinning on. We can show the next frame before and after. We can show all the frames, or we can customize the onion framing. And we've also got multi-frame editing, which means that once we edit across all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and select some of the onion skinning here, showing the next frame. And we see that the onion skin has appeared here, and we can also see it on our document window. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stretch the onion skin, selecting more frames as we go, and we see that the onion skin has now stretched across all the different frames. We can show all the frames in the onion skin, and what the onion skin is doing, we can see like a lighter outline of the original document, of the original frame, and they become different as we move along. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just stretch out the animation across a bunch of different frames so we can see the onion skinning effect, starting at the first frame, moving across all the different frames, Currently, because we've got frame 5 selected, there's a box around frame 5. If I go to 6, the box is around frame 6. Frame number 1 is our original frame. This is where it starts, and we see all the different frames in one view. We've also got a looping option for the animation where we can loop it, have no looping, so the animation will only play once, and we have looping times of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and 20, and forever. I'm going to just turn off the onion skinning and once again play the animation, and we see that as it moves across the different frames, we see the blue oval shape moving across the different frames also. We're able to select the object and we can edit the animation. We can do this by right clicking, selecting animation, and selecting settings. And we see that this opens up the same window as we originally set the animation, where we've got all the different frames, we've got how much moving, how much direction, the scale that we're creating, the opacity, the rotation of it, and we've got counterclockwise or clockwise. Same window that opens up when we originally set the animation. We can edit the animation symbol itself if we want to. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to put maybe a letter on top of it. I'm going to change the color of that. And I'm going to move it back on top of the oval shape. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to group it, and I'm going to recreate the animation. As I said, there's different ways to recreate the animation. We can right click, animate, and we can animate selection, or we can simply press on the keyboard Alt Shift F8. That allows us to animate it. We're also able to animate it by selecting modify, animate, and we see that we're going to be brought to the same window as we were working with before. We've got our default here of 5 frames, movement, we've got the direction that we want to move in, how far we want to make the movement, the scaling of the movement, so we can scale it, we've got opacity, and of course we've got the rotation, which we can also edit later on. So I'm going to just go ahead and select OK. So once again, it's asking us that its frames doesn't match the amount of frames that we're requesting for this particular object. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. We're going to watch how it creates all the different frames. Go ahead and play the particular image, and we see that the image now moves down across the way that we set it earlier. The way to distinguish your animated objects from regular objects is when you select on top of them, you'll see the green dot in the center, which is the first frame, and the red dot at the end, which is the ending frame. And you see all the frames in the middle just represented as blue dots. So this is a way to tell that this particular symbol is animated, and I can tell that once I click upon it and I can see that I've got this line coming out of it. And I can easily edit where the frames are going simply by clicking on it, and I can move it around as I need to. I can select the different frames by selecting the blue dots, and I can maneuver the image as I need to for this particular area. And this also changes the frame path of the other objects that are attached to it. That was working with animation and working with different frames with the symbol. When we work with just animation alone between the different frames, so I'm going to go ahead and set up the animation just as we did earlier. We see that the frames has given us an option of the delay frame rate. To adjust this simply by double clicking on it, and it opens up a small window for the delay frame rate, which is divided by how many per 100 second. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 50, or we could simply select and we could go to properties, and it opens up the delay frame window also. I go ahead and play this, and you're going to see that the first frame is 50, then 777, 50, 777. And we can see this helps us adjust and edit our animation to play in the exact sequence that we want it to play in. Incorporating the frames and the layers together, we can move along and I'm just going to move it to frame number 3, and I'm going to add in another oval shape, except this time we're going to make a red oval shape, and I'm just going to add this in on frame number 3. We're going to see it when I go to layers that this has been added in to frame number 3, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play the particular animation, and we see that once it gets to frame number 3, it shows us the layer exactly the way that we drew it in. So we've got frame number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is one way where we can add in different images and graphics per different frame, adding more effects to the object that we're working with. You can also see that the original animation that we created, when we open up, go to Windows, select Library or F11 on the keyboard, we see that the symbol that we created is sitting within the library, and it's already defined as a symbol, and it's already defined as an animation. Working with symbols, we're able to tween the different ones. Here under Assets, we've got our library. If you want to open you can go to Windows and select Library, and this automatically opens up our library. We're going to import the symbol that we created earlier into our library, so we're going to go ahead and select Import Symbols. We've got a symbol called Custom, which is the blue oval shape moving along. Go ahead and open that up, and here it's going to give us the information that we're importing in. Going to go ahead and select Import, and we see that this particular symbol has now been imported into our library. I can now drag and drop it onto our document window. I'm going to drag and drop 2 separate instances of it, and I'm going to select both instances. From here I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go down to Symbol and select Tween Instances, or I can actually press Ctrl Alt Shift T. First of all, it's going to ask me the different steps. So I've got 10 steps, and I'm going to distribute it to the frames. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. We see that the 10 frames have now been created, and I can go ahead and I can play the particular animation that we've created, and we see that what happens here is that the animation is moving along, and each different frame has the same blue image on it, and it eventually gets to the last blue image where we were trying to merge it into. So we've actually tweened the 2 instances together, creating another effect of animation moving across. This is good if you've got some more complex animation that you're trying to do, and this way you can just tween the 2 animations together and automatically get all the frames done. These are essentially the different ways to create animation within your Macromedia Fireworks. You can either do it manually, just do frame by frame, draw individual animation, create from one frame to the other. You can create a symbol, you can tween the 2 instances together, or you could just animate without using a symbol and just animate the object by itself.